the models of the intervention in Afghanistan and Iraq was definitely wrong. And intervention in Syria maybe could be without increasing the bloodshed. For example, NATO and United Nations allies would settle in a border between a security zone between Turkey and Syria, but without increasing the bloodshed, and or a blockade, for example, from the land and from the sea, just as a deterrent force. That may solve the problem. And also, I think it's very important that Russia's intervention in that, they would definitely, Assad would definitely listen to Putin and the Russia. I think that's very crucial. And in fact, Putin came to Turkey to discuss this issue with our Prime Minister Erdogan. Jerry?
I was reading an article that came out yesterday, or Friday, I guess it was, and part of this where Mikhail Bogdanov had said that unfortunately the victory of Syrian opposition cannot be ruled out. And Russia is actually, they have in place a plan to evacuate Russian citizens. And if you look at other news in here, the U.S. with the UN has basically said the same thing. One thing I think that the hesitation, I think that we haven't touched on yet, is also there are situations with the UN, the U.S., Russia, Germany, China, that are also very touchy situations right now. And we have different, you have, Russia supporting Syria, and the U.S. with the UN, and Russia and the U.S. right now have tips going on with their political venue that we have, with the U.S. wanting to put sanctions on Russian diplomats, and then Russia wanting to put sanctions on U.S. diplomats. And those are kind of high tension things. They're not really in the news, but when you combine that with the support that we have in Syria, and as was said a little bit ago, with the rest of the wars that are going on around the world, and also we can't ignore that with what is there and the rebels that are going up against Assad. I agree that a lot of people are unsure what would be after Assad is toppled. When you look at the rebels, there really is no one force leading the rebellion against Assad. A lot of the rebels, so to speak, are regular countrymen. There are a lot of different sects. There are a lot of different organizations that are together against that. But to say that which one are we going to help? Which one do you give the help to? Who do you talk to give help to? Without going in as a UN movement or as another country, which would be another invasion, basically. I think that has been a lot of the hesitant on the side of the UN. And the last 4 or 5 days, I would go as far to say that the situation in Syria has went a long way when you have the UN and Russia coming up and saying that, excuse me, that the toppling of Assad is imminent. And then you also have the threat of chemical weapons too. So there's a lot to look at in that picture. If going in and interfering with what's going on could maybe make things worse if they have chemical weapons. Assad's firing Scud missiles now, and some of that has been reported to have napalm and other chemicals in there, or white phosphorus. So I guess you could kind of say it's like a scale. If you get too much on one side of it, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I think that's what a lot of people are looking at, because there is the potential there. It could get a lot worse with just a couple of bad moves. In a couple of days, it could get severely worse. I think it's a lot more touchy situation than what we've seen in some other conflicts. But I do think that I think myself that it's going to be inevitable. I think it's going to have to be dealt with sooner than later, as far as the international community is coming together to figure out how to handle Syria after the topple of Assad.
Let me just add 2 words, if I may.
Please go ahead. Yeah, please.
The key words here, I think, to understand, for your audience to understand, is first word I believe is fogginess. We don't know what's going on in Syria, and Jerry explained that eloquently. The second word is hesitation. Because we don't know, very hard to act. The third point is that there are red lines in the context of Syria, and first and foremost at this moment is everything having to do with the proliferation of chemical weapons and platforms of delivery, meaning missiles. I know that for Israel this is a red line, for the United States it's a red line, I believe also for Turkey. This is something of grave concern. The last thing I will say is that there are a lot of people in Israel that are deeply concerned by the humanitarian crisis in Syria and frustrated by the inability to do basically anything about it. If you just imagine the border today between Israel and Syria, on one side you have the Druze community on the Israeli side, on the Golan Heights, and I know the Golan Heights is a contested area, but at the moment, under Israeli sovereignty, you have Druze, and they have family members on the Syrian side of the border, and we can see those Israelis that stand on the Israeli side of the border can see the fighting on the Syrian side of the border. The humanitarian crisis there that is growing, the grave concern of the local communities about their safety, their well-being. It's really, really troubling, and there are a lot of Israelis that are deeply concerned by that and frustrated by the inability to do anything in these circumstances.
Well, I again go back that I said before that coming together of Egypt, Israel, Russia, and Turkey is very important to solve any problem in the Middle East, in Syria, in Egypt, or Iran's enmity and hatred against Israel. For protection and security in the region, it is very crucial, and this has to be done. Now, my question is, Mr. Grinstein, about radicalism and bigotry. As you know, there is radicalism and bigotry and anti-Semitism, which are all forms of bigotry that are greatly troubling mankind. But in Islam, there is no such thing. There is no enmity and hatred against the people of the book. Violence is unacceptable, and it's actually banned in Quran. And there is peace, democracy, freedom, and justice in the Quran. So we believe that education based on true Islam is very crucial to eradicate radicalism and bigotry, which is, of course, a danger to the entire world, not to the Middle East, only to the Middle East, but to the entire world. Because if then these radicals, seeing that Quran actually bans them from killing or from being hostile to others and from many other atrocities, and they will have to stop.